Hey everybody, I am Keaton. This is Kid Catholic Season 6, Episode 7. So a few things. Finally, the expander thing above on the roof of my mouth is gone, so I shouldn't have a lisp, except I still have a little bit of one because I'm not used to it not being there. So I'm still sort of talking with a lisp, but it shouldn't be as bad. Also, my eye thing is still a little bit there, but not for long. This should be the last episode with that, so just to address that. And so before we get into it, do you guys know that relatable moment when you film an entire video and then while importing accidentally permanently delete everything that has ever been on your camera? Because I do. It's a ton of fun. So try number 2. Keaton, please don't permanently delete this footage. Okay, so what I wanted to talk to you guys about today is a fair warning. It can, if you have kids watching this, you might want to watch it first, because I have a lot of kids who watch my videos, and what we're going to be talking about today is modern martyrdom, and what has happened in Sri Lanka, and what happened with Notre, and the rise of attacks on the church. And so if you don't want kids knowing about it, or really getting too much into it, then you might want to watch this video first before letting them watch it. Just a fair warning. So I wanted to get right into it. So I almost did my Notre Dame video last week. I almost filmed it. But then I realized that I have a lot of kids watching this. I didn't want to get too much into that. And it was sort of old news. So I just went with a different video. And then Sri Lanka happened. And I can't just sit back and ignore it. I can't just sit back and continue to make videos and pretend that everything in our church is perfectly fine, because it's not. By the way, if I'm saying Sri Lanka wrong sometimes, it's because I'm trying to pronounce it correctly, but the roof of my mouth just won't let me because I'm so not used to it being there. Sri Lanka. I'm trying my best. Anyway, what happened with the recent attacks on Sri Lanka, however, so unfortunately, nearly 300 people are dead, and at least 500 people are wounded. What happened was it was bombings on 3 Catholic churches and 3 hotels on Easter morning. And I'm going to be saying a lot of ums and pauses in this video because it's just so hard to comprehend how on the most joyful, most holy day throughout the entire year, such a devastating, such a terrible tragedy happens, and it happens to the church, to the Catholic Church. Now, it's important to note that the terrorist group ISIS has taken credit for this, but what's most important about that, I wouldn't be mentioning that in this video if it wasn't important. What's most important about that is they even said that it was meant as an attack on Christians. It was meant as an attack on Catholics. It was meant as an attack on us. We as a Catholic Church, not just them as a country, not just those specific churches, as a Catholic Church, it was meant to be an attack on us. And then that was just... That wasn't even the beginning. That was the end of it, right? It started earlier in the week, on the beginning of Holy Week, the beginning of the holiest week in the year, in one of the most famous cathedrals in the world, probably the second most famous in Europe behind St. Peter's, Notre Dame Cathedral, tragically burned down. And it has been ruled an accident. And so I can't sit here and tell you that it definitely is an attack on our church, but I can tell you that that's what it most likely is, and the fact that they aren't looking deeper into it is shocking. And you don't have to be a conspiracy theorist to sit and think that Notre Dame wasn't an accident, that it was on purpose, right? Because I actually found this thing on Instagram from Redneck Catholic, and it is a map of all the churches that have been attacked in France in just the past, I think 4 years it was. And the map is just filled and filled and filled with a ton of churches attacked in France. And Notre Dame was the last one to be done. And if you're telling me that that's an accident, no. Also, the construction workers, they said that construction really hadn't even begun on it, right? They said that And everything was done to prevent a fire from happening. There was no way it could have been caused because of construction. It just doesn't make sense. It's just not logical, right? Because if you look, the source of the fire is different than the spots where the actual construction is taking place. So the fact that that could be ruled that is ridiculous. And you don't have to be a conspiracy theorist, or you don't have to jump to any conclusion to think that it could have been done on purpose. Now, I can't sit here and say that it's 100% for sure done on purpose, because technically they ruled it an accident. But it's very, very, very high possibility that that was the case. And if that is the case, then the modern attack on Catholics, it's just begun, right? With Sri Lanka and Notre Dame, and there's always been martyrdom in the world somewhere, but recently especially it hasn't been super bad. That doesn't mean it hasn't been bad, but it hasn't been super bad. But basically, when you go and look at these two events, both happening on Holy Week, both huge events, right? That is a direct and large attack on our Catholic Church. And no, it wasn't just some random Easter worshipers like the media will want to tell you. It was truly Catholics, some of whom had just made their first communion, who were dead at Sri Lanka that day because of a terrorist attack. And the attack on Catholics is just beginning. But it shouldn't make us scared to go to Mass. It shouldn't make us scared to be Catholic, because no matter what, like the martyrs before us have done, no matter what, we need to put 100% of our faith, 100% of our trust in God. We need to trust Him that everything is going to be okay. Because you look back on the thousands of years of history of the Catholic Church, they have tried to decimate us so many times, right? In the early Christians, they martyred a ton, right? A ton of martyrs were there. There's always been martyrs. They've tried to decimate us. They can try to decimate us, but they never will. I don't know why they keep trying, to be honest. Because we Catholics, we will remain strong and we will stay together. All we need to do is put 100% of our faith, 100% of our trust in God. We also need to pray for the people of France, pray for the victims at Sri Lanka, because they are our fellow Catholics. They are our fellow people in general, and we need to stand with them, and we need to be ready. I made a video about this a little bit ago. We need to be ready to be martyred like the martyrs before us. We need to love God enough so that we are willing to be martyred, right? Just like the people at Sri Lanka, right? Luckily, nobody was harmed in the Notre Dame fire, but it's still sad to see such a historic site, such a wonderful church burn down. And so while nobody was injured in that, it's still sad, and it's still an attack on the Catholic Church, still an attack on Catholics, and it's so devastating to see. We need to stand together. We need to stand as one. We can't let this happen anymore. You know, with how the media is portraying Catholics, they're trying to block us out, right? Today's world is trying to block us out, pretend that we don't exist, essentially, right? That's what they are trying to do, right? We cannot let them succeed, because we don't want to get it to a point where the entire world is to be under attack, where the entire church is to be under attack, right? The church is starting to be under attack, and this is a story that has not finished, right? This is a page in the history books that has not finished, right? Notre Dame burning in the beginning of the week, and then Sri Lanka burning at the end of the week. I'm so used to telling stories, right? I'm so used to telling stories, telling you the beginning of the end. Well, this story, the martyrdom in the 21st century, we're just in the middle of it. We're just in the beginning of this story, and so I can't tell you what's going to happen, right? We need to pray that no further martyrdom happens. We do. But we also need to understand that it might happen, and we need to be ready, and we need to tell our fellow Catholic to be ready. We need to tell the world to be ready, because nobody will ever take the Catholic Church down, right? And it's not going to start now, right? We need to stand together as Catholics, stand united against the world, right? Because no matter what happens, we will always prevail. The Catholic Church, if we put our trust in God, if we put 100% of our faith in God, you, me, if we do that, then we will prevail, even with tragedies such as Sri Lanka or Notre Dame. even with tragedies such as those that are so devastating to the Catholic Church, we can't put our heads down. We need to put our heads up, right? We need to. So let's stand together. Let's do our best to stand together and put our faith in God. And I'll get into it into Saint of the Week, but the martyrs are such great people to look at for that, because they did it. I would like to pray for, I have prayed for the victims of Sri Lanka, for the people of France. I ask you to do the same. We Catholics, we need to pray for them. We need to pray for others around the world, other Christians who are being martyred, not just Catholic, other fellow Christians who are being martyred as well. And we need to do our best to stand against this, to become more moral, right? Like I said, there's going to be some pauses in here, because it's just so hard to believe. You see, with me, I was born in 2005, and so any big tragedy that happened before that, such as 9/11 or anything like that before 2005, it seemed so long ago. It seemed impossible for something like that to happen in my lifetime. And sure, there have been a ton of devastating tragedies in my lifetime, but Notre burning down Sri Lanka, those are the first two that I've been able to fully wrap my head around as a serious tragedy. And so it's really hard for me to see something that I visited in September, right? You can go and watch my vlog. I visited Notre Dame in September. I was lucky enough to be able to be there. Me and my family, we walked around it. I love Notre Dame, right? And to see something like that burn, it's crazy to be in the middle of a page of the history books. And we don't know how it's going to play out. But like I said, if we put our faith in God, it can't be all too bad. So now that the topic is done, you all know what it's time for now. It's time for
the Saint of the Week.
So today's Saint of the Week is Saint Alban, and Saint Alban is perfect for today's topic. And I feel like I say that every Saint of the Week, but it's true, because every saint is perfect for the topic, except for that one day I got braces, but that's beside the point. Saint Alban is an absolutely incredible saint who we can all look to, and of course I would pick a martyr for this. Saint Alban was a martyr, and he was living in a martyr of England, actually, and in England at the time when he was around, Christians were being persecuted, and though he himself was not Christian at the time that this certain event happened, he decided to hide a priest in his house. Well, the government, they got word that he was hiding the priest in his house, and they came to find him. St. Alban knew that, so he changed clothes with the priest and allowed the priest to run away, and St. Alban stayed and offered himself up instead. So, do you know what they did? They took St. Alban, and they said, we are going to give you the same punishment we would a priest for hiding him and for letting him go. And this is when he converted. He had spent so much time talking to the priest in his own home that he decided to convert to Christianity. So they asked his religion. He said,